Dragon Warrior is one of the most important games ever created. It drew inspiration from heavy D&D influenced RPGs like Wizardry and Ultima, but simplified every aspect to make it more appealing to the average gamer. The result was a gaming phenomenon still present today, at least in Japan, and essentially the modern RPG, a formula also still seen today. But that doesn't mean this game has aged well at all, because it hasn't. The NES version of Dragon Warrior is so difficult and tedious, it's virtually unplayable to anyone except the hardest of the hardcore retro gamers. But Dragon Warrior is still a game every gamer should experience because of how important it is. However, the best way to play it in America is the Game Boy Color port. The Game Boy Color port of Dragon Warrior is one of my favorite RPGs ever made. It takes everything that keeps the NES original from being enjoyable today and cuts it like a fatty steak. By making a ton of little tweaks, it takes a game that could take, say, your whole 3rd grade summer vacation to beat, and makes a game that you could beat in, say, the time it takes to fly from Anchorage, Alaska to a gaming convention just outside Washington, D.C. Dragon Warrior is a game everyone should experience, but if you want to actually enjoy it, it's essential you play the Game Boy Color port. And before people ask, yes, it is of course packaged with Dragon Warrior 2, which is an infinitely better sequel ported to the Game Boy with just as much care and attention to detail as Part 1. But I still prefer the first one because it's so short and simple and requires so little dedication. It's that Mystic Quest mentality again. I mean, sure, Dragon Warrior 2 was a bigger, better, more polished adventure than the first, but the first is quick, less complicated, and while still challenging, can be beaten in a few hours. You could probably speedrun this game, but I don't know anything about that stuff. I realize a lot of my audience has probably played Dragon Warrior. There's not too much to talk about. So to illustrate how much the Game Boy Color port is an improvement over the original NES version, I performed a little experiment. I started a new game on both ports and played approximately 30 minutes. I tracked my progress, my levels, my gold, all that stuff as I went. If you've only ever played the NES version, I think the results may surprise you. Here we go. As I said, I started a new game on both versions and got to grinding as soon as I could. 3 minutes in on the Game Boy port, I was level 2 and killing Drakies and Red Slimes in one hit. By minute 6, I was level 3, and ghosts, in this game spookies, had become less of a threat but still took a few turns to kill. I have over 120 gold, but I'm skipping the leather armor and holding out until I can afford the chainmail. By minute 5 on the NES, I had only reached level 2. Red Slimes are still tough to beat in one round. Still, I had a decent amount of money, so I was saving up for some good gear. Minute 9 on the Game Boy, I'm level 4. My growth is pretty staggered at this point. I really need new gear, but I finally have enough to buy a much needed steel sword. Minute 9, back on the NES, I'm still rocking the club, but I hit level 3 and finally learn heal. But I find out the heal can be worthless because it costs more MP than it does on the Game Boy, and even at level 3, I sometimes need to cast heal 2 times because its strength is random, but at level 3 I don't have enough MP to cast it twice. By minute 13 on the Game Boy, I need to battle stronger monsters so I can afford better gear, so I head east. But I'm pushing it a little, so I stay near the bridge just in case. By minute 15, I'm level 5 and I'm confidently grinding by the 3rd town. Getting 25 gold from Scorpions is really nice. By minute 15 on the NES, I'm still level 3 and grinding has been going slowly, but I earn enough money to buy my first shield. I still cannot beat Red Slimes in one round, and Drakies and Ghosts are still trouble. At minute 20, I'm on the cusp of level 4, and I attempt to visit the 2nd town, but barely make it back alive after I bump into a magician. Maybe I should have held out for a copper sword instead of buying a shield. Back on the Game Boy, at minute 22, I hit level 6. I buy my first shield and then run to the west to buy steel armor. I prepare to venture into the first major dungeon. Minute 25 on the NES, I finally hit level 4. I make it to the next town but can't afford anything here, and it doesn't look like I'll be able to for a while. Magicians give me a mere 4 experience and 9 gold, but because their magic is way too strong for me, I tend to stay away from them. When I hit the 30-minute mark, I'm struggling against the easiest enemies in the game, and I'm very far from achieving another level or being able to afford better gear. On the contrary, on the Game Boy port, I was level 7 and at the first major dungeon, and though the monsters on the 2nd floor were a bit too much, I'm still able to hit a couple of chests and hightail it out of there with a ton of cash. It's enough for me to upgrade my gear so I can confidently head back to the cave and collect the rest of the treasure. At minute 45, I would have hit the Marsh Cave and been working my way through the Southeast Island. So you see, on the Game Boy they tweaked the hell out of this game. Spells are more powerful, more reliable, and cost less to cast. Enemies give more gold and experience and are sometimes weaker. I can't really confirm this, but random battles don't feel like they're happening as frequently. Now you might think this makes Dragon Warrior too easy, and I say no, it makes this game actually fun. It still has its challenging bits later, and to be fair, weapons and armor aren't cheaper, and experience needed to level up hasn't been reduced. Saving up for that silver shield still takes a really long time. The only two bad things I can say about this game are the screen and the music. The screen is tighter, but I didn't notice until I played the two ports back to back, so it's not a big deal. And also, this makes the world a little smaller and quicker to explore. Hey, that's another way this game cuts the fat. Another is very repetitious music. Get ready to hear the first few notes of the dungeon music a million times. But if you're like me and play this game while you're traveling, you've got an iPod and can put on some real music like, I don't know, the soundtrack to Final Fantasy Mystic Quest. So to sum up, Dragon Warrior is one of the most important games ever created, and it's also one of the most poorly aged, so it's imperative you play the Game Boy Color port bundled with Part 2. It's even more fun than the RPG and Retro Game Challenge. Oh, you've never heard of Retro Game Challenge? Oh, Well, anyway, see you on the next.
Get Quickie!